Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's special meeting of December 11th, 2023. We are here this evening to present the 2024 budget and the three-year capital expenditure plan of 2024, 2025, and 2026. So without further ado, moving on to, so opening of the meeting has been done. Section 2, adoption of the agenda. So I will need a mover, Reed Thompson, seconded to my right by Peter Mate, that the agenda of the special council meeting of December 11th of 2023 be adopted as presented. Donc en français.
2.2, l'adoption de l'ordre du jour, alors que l'ordre du jour de la présente séance extraordinaire du Conseil du 11 décembre 2023 soit adopté et il est par les présents tel que présenté.
Merci. Are there any objections to the agenda? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 3, presentation of the 2024 budget and 2024, 2025, 2026 program of capital expenditures. So the Treasurer, Mario Miller, here to my left, will present the details of the town's 2024 operating budget and the 2024, 2025, 2026 capital works budget. En français.
Point 3 de l'ordre du jour, présentation du budget 2024 et du programme triennal d'immobilisation 2024, 2025 et 2026. Le trésorier Mario Miller va présenter les détails du budget de fonctionnement pour l'année 2024 et du programme triennal d'immobilisation pour les années 2024, 2025, 2026 de la Ville.
Merci. Donc, Mario, je vous cède la parole. Allez-y.
Thank you. Merci, Madame la mairesse. Donc, on débute avec l'ordre du jour, the agenda. So, 2023 highlights and 2024 highlights again. Then the revenue, expenses, taxation, and 3 years capital investment program, and evolution of the debt. Okay. So what is the highlights for 2023? We have reduced salary and benefits costs due to the vacancies. We speak about $600,000. And reduce legal expenses, $100,000. Urban planning project not realized, $200,000. Anticipation reimbursement for the ice storm, $100,000. Ice storm expenses of last spring, unused working capital forecast, we see about 400 and other 200. Deep side of the current labor shortage, 96.3% of the operating budget objective has been successfully achieved. Cost of around about $100,000, primarily related to road and repairs to the public infrastructures. So that's in English. So then, and after it, there's what is the increase? We speak about salary and benefits, snow removal for $200,000, Sûreté du Québec for $100,000. Shared contributions, MRC, CMI, and ARTM, debt servicing, $500,000. Legal, we will say that we anticipate reduction on the legal fee, software license, and electricity abrasive. And other revenue, interest of income, cash reserve, and government transfer, and tax transfer. And after it, there's the ventilation or the split of the income. So we have all the general tax property. We speak about 9.9 million. Okay, tax long debt. So it's 1.3 million. There's also tax by sector, $167,000. Services tax, so it's all the sewer, aqueduct, and water, and the garbage for $2,000. $2 million. Sorry about that. Thank you. After it, there's a paiement annual tax, $185,000. Transfer of the government, $392. Service rendered, we speak about 264. Duty, transfer duty, we speak about $1,600,000. Fine and penalty for $81,000 rather. Interest, $767, and other income, $5,000. So here we have the ventilation of all the expenses. So most of the expenses are salaries. We speak about $5.1 million. General administration for $1 million rather. Public security, so it's $2.6 million. Transport is $2.4 million. And there's water for $154. There's also residual waste for $1 million. Health and welfare, santé bien-être for $74,400. Urban planning development for $65,900,000. There's culture and recreation, so for $717. And debt services passed from last year 2.6 to 2.2 this year, a total of $16,947,000. Here there's a graphic of the expenses. So we have a salary in the first line over here, and public security 15.6, transportation 14.3. Debt services and affectation for 13.5, residual material for 6.3, 6.2 for general administration, water treatment 5%, culture and recreation 4.2%, and urban planning and development 3.9%. So there's with the figures, the split I just spoke before. And there's the main expenses. So the main expenses is the salary for $5.1 million. Then after it, professional services for $440,000. Legal services for $204,000. Snow removal that goes from, we see an increase of about 36.1%. So it's almost $900,000. Abrasive contract, $331,000. And again, residual material for $543,000. And share costs, cut power, MRC, CMM, and RTM for $1.2 million, about an increase of 7.5%. Okay. So as the Sûreté du Québec I speak before, it passed from 1.8 to 1.9 million. Okay, so it's an increase of 5.5%. Then there's all the IT support and everything, license and software. It goes from 418 to 406, so it's an increase of 2.9%. Energy, we speak about electricity and heating oil for 12.5%, and the service of debt and affectation it goes from 2.6 to 2.2, should be minus 14.2 per year. Okay. Then there's the tax. Okay. We just increased the tax for residential from 0.6185 to 0.6420. It's a 3.8% increase. Non-residential or commercial passed from 0.63 to 0.6539. Vacant lot deserve, so it's 78.75 to 0.8174. 3.8% also over here. Agriculture from another 3.8%. Debt at large, so for all the debt we speak about an increase of 2.8%. then all the services are the same as last year, so they stay stable. So here's our assessment role. So it goes from 1.4 billion, most of the residential, the 6 unit or more, 14,421, 7 vacant lot, 5.2 million, non-residential for 53,693, wood lots for 2029, agriculture for 6,029. So we took, for example, just to show what is the increase of the tax, the impact of the tax. With urban and sewer services, so it goes from 3,768 to 3,889, an increase of 3.2%. With water, we speak about 3.54%, and no services, it will be 3.81%. The average of all that is about 3.5%. Okay, there's an example. I just missed the slide before. $600,000. It's about the same thing. And also $600,000 will be 3.41%. And for $1 million house, it would be 3.67%. Okay, we're speaking now for the 3-year capital investment plan. I will just a 3-year capital investment plan is a planning tool regularly adjusted to based on the available grant, project evaluation, government approval, and various other conditions. This plan takes into account current project, the most urgent investment, council priority, resident capacity for the debt, taxation rate, judicious use of the surpluses. So here's the main program. We speak about infrastructure for 3.1 million in 2024, 2025 5 million, and 2026 $3 million. Building renovation for $167, $1 million for 2025. Water infrastructure for $1.2 million in 2024, 2025 $5,500,000, and $2.1 million in 2026. Replacement program, so it's all the rolling stock. We speak about $28,000 and $455 for 2025. And for 2026, $250,000. Other project and equipment and everything, we speak about 1.6 million and 900,000 for 2025 and 400,000 for 2026. So how we will finance these investments? We speak about working capital. Most of it will be equipment like car and equipment and everything for $547,000, for $530,000 in 2025, and in 2026 $70,000. And reserve for park, okay, park reserve, $180,000. Allocated surplus, 1.6 million in 2024, 1.3 in 2025, and 625 in 2026. There's a tech program, so it's a grant from the government. We speak about 1.6 million in 2024, 2025 460, and 2026 100,000. sectorial financing, $40,000 and $40,000 again for 2025 and for 2026, $340,000. Other reserve surplus, loan and everything, $3 million in 2024, $6.5 million in 2025, and 2026, $4.7 million. So the total financing equals the investment. Okay. Here we show the evolution of the debt. So we begin the year at $28 million at the beginning of the year. Then we have regular payment on our debt of $1.3 million. Then after it, we have new debt. So we made investment on Beach and Auckland for Maine. Okay. Then after it, it was Maine again for Quarry Point to Bellevue, $766,000. Then there's I would say a previsible debt at the end of this year of $22 million. And there's a reimbursement, oh, I just missed that one over here, for $5.3 million. It was on, they said it's a SDRD. It's account, it's balance money from loan and bylaw of the previous year, that when it arrived the term of refinancing, we applied that money available to the debt. For 2023, we will have a reimbursement of $1.2 million, about the same as over here, 1.3 for this year and 1.2 next year. And new debt over here is $1.1 million for Quarry Point, Maine, for Quarry Point to Bellevue. And we anticipate a debt of $22 million at the end of 2024. So les documents qui seraient disponibles sur le site web, on parle de liste comparative des taux de taxation 2023 et des projets inclus dans le plan d'immobilisation 2024, 2025 et 2026. Madame la mairesse, à vous la parole.
Oui, est-ce que vous voulez attendre jusqu'à la fin de la rencontre pour les questions ou est-ce que vous voulez les prendre avant?
On est disponible là.
Avez-vous une préférence? Non.
Normalement, on adopte les résolutions, puis la période de questions est à la fin.
So, moving on to section 4, adoption of the 2024 budget. So, whereas between November 15th and December 31st, or following January 31st during a year of which a general election is held, the Council shall prepare and adopt the budget of the municipality for the next fiscal year and provide therein for revenues at least equal to the expenditures provided for therein. Whereas a public notice for the adoption of the 2024 budget forecast was published, this resolution is that the budget of the Town of Hudson for the 2024 fiscal year ending December 31st of 2024 be adopted in the following amounts. So for revenues, $16,947,000. For expenses, $15,526,500, sorry. Fiscal adjustments for $1,420,500 for total expenditures of $16,947,000. En français.
Point 4, adoption du budget 2024. Alors, le Conseil doit, entre le 15 novembre et le 31 décembre ou le 31 janvier suivant, lors d'une année d'élection générale, préparer et adopter le budget de la municipalité pour le prochain exercice financier et y prévoir des revenus au moins égaux aux dépenses qui y figurent. Considérant qu'un avis public de l'adoption des prévisions budgétaires pour l'exercice financier 2024 a été publié, la présente résolution vise à adopter le budget de la Ville de Hudson pour l'exercice financier 2024 se terminant le 31 décembre 2024 au montant suivant. Revenus, $16 947 000 Charges, $15 526 500 Ajustements fiscaux, 1 420 500. Le total des charges s'élève à 16 947 000.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections with this resolution? Please raise your hand. C'est adopté par la majorité.
Enregistré? Oui. C'est M. Smith, M. Blais aussi?
C'est bon? Section 5, adoption of the 2024, 2025, 2026 program of capital expenditures. Whereas the council shall not later than December 31st of each year adopt by resolution the program of the capital expenditures of the municipality for the next 3 fiscal years. This resolution is that the program of capital expenditures of the town of Hudson for the fiscal year of 2024, 2025, and 2026 be adopted as tabled.
Le point 5, adoption du programme triennal d'immobilisation 2024, 2025, 2026. Alors, le Conseil doit au plus tard le 31 décembre de chaque année ou le 31 janvier suivant lors d'une année d'élection adopter par résolution le programme des immobilisations de la municipalité pour les 3 années financières subséquentes. La présente résolution vise à adopter le programme triennal d'immobilisation de la Ville de Hudson pour les exercices financiers 2024, 2025 et 2026 qui soient adoptés tels que déposés.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections with this resolution? Donc, c'est adopté par majorité. C'est bon? So, question period, section 6, and as a reminder, the question period must deal exclusively with the items on the agenda. So I'll alternate between, there's 8 people in attendance. Online, there's no questions yet, so please come to the microphone. It's to your left, and I remind you that this is recorded and that your questions and answers will be recorded.
Good evening, Monsieur Miller. Merci infiniment. I have one question concerning the sewer expenses and taxation. I know that there's 2 parts to that, but according to my read of this, it's $256 and $360 for anybody in the downtown core, over $500. Is that an accurate read? And how does that compare with last year?
Monsieur Miller?
It's the same. It's the same thing as last year. We do not touch the services tax.
Services tax on the sewer
Sewer and water.
Okay, and the cost of the money, the loan component of that, has that changed at all?
Because there's no new loan. So if they're refinancing, so the cost of the debt will be different for different sector.
So it has gone up.
It's well, I have some figure over there in my other file, but maybe Mr. Duff, I will take your question and we'll come back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions online? I see none. Please go ahead.
I have a question about the billing process and the taxation to be paid. There's a lot of snowbirds in Hudson, and the first payment has to be made March the 21st. Yes, there's no access at all to be able to find out how much you owe in taxes. Is that something that's going to be available this year?
Overtax on which sector?
Non. En ce moment, il n'y a aucun moyen de savoir qu'est-ce qu'on doit en taxes si on est à l'extérieur du pays durant l'hiver.
Okay.
Fait qu'on ne peut pas aller sur la ville, sur le site de la ville, puis voir qu'est-ce qu'on doit.
Okay.
Est-ce que ça va être disponible cette année? Parce que...
You know one thing we could do? Have your email address, and we could send you information or your tax bill by email.
Okay. All right. That's a good way to do it.
That would be one solution.
For sure. It would be. Another thing, too, I don't know if this was here before, but any commercial activity in a private residence will be charged $120. Do people have to register for that, or how are you going to find out if they're actually running a business? Like a lot of people run businesses out of their houses.
This is
You'll have to repeat the question because I didn't understand.
So this is section 14, where there's $120 tax for anybody, like you, for instance, who's running a business out of their house. So if you're doing any kind of service, and it's increasingly more people do that, how will you find out who's part of that?
I think the person has to declare that they do it. So, for example, I am taxed, and I think it's a one-time charge. And usually it's on whether you declare it on, if you're registered, for example. I'm a registered person, so it shows up on my address. And also, I think that they do a run-through, either through advertisements or others. I don't know how they found me, but there is a form that needs to be filled. And I think I've been taxed since about 3 years or so. But it was a one-time fee. And I do have a certificate that is pinned on my wall at home, my work office.
Okay, so it's like a business tax kind of thing.
Mais à l'interne, comment est-ce que vous faites? C'est ça la question. Maybe another answer that on pourrait lui donner par écrit.
Oui, je pense qu'on va revenir avec la question.
C'est probablement l'inspecteur de la ville.
Peut-être concernant la section du 504, pour les gens qui ont une connexion, il y a une charge ici de 56,80 en extra. C'est peut-être ça. Je ne sais pas si c'est ça que Jim avait vu. Un extra sur les services, les frais de service. Vous avez sur la page 7 et 8, où est-ce que ça écrit? Ça, c'est la section 20 du règlement 504, où est-ce que ça dit qu'il y a une compensation, où est-ce qu'on doit payer, même si on paye déjà les frais de service pour l'eau et tout ça, on doit payer un extra, un excédent de 56,80.
C'est la taxe de secteur, ça, je crois. Hein?
Je pense que c'est sur la connexion. Fait que si c'est le secteur, c'est tout le monde qui serait relié.
OK.
C'est le règlement d'emprunt sectoriel qui est passé à 56. 80 par unité.
OK.
OK, merci.
Bienvenue.
There are none. Please come ahead.
Hi. I'm just a little bit confused. Could we go back? Like, originally, I think based on the council meeting a few months ago, when we're looking at the budget, okay, the expenses were going to be about $14.5 million. Oh, good. It goes up. Yeah, well, it was explained, and I sort of got half of it. You know, like there was a savings. We're looking at a surplus again this year. And I saw that there was a savings that he segregated and described all the savings. So I'm expecting a nice surplus, and then there were over expenditures. Could we go over that? Like what exactly? I understand we saved a lot of money. We didn't spend it because some were salaries that were not spent.
Correct.
The positions were left open, I guess.
Correct.
We could not fill them, and other expenditures, and then we overspent on a lot of areas. So one countered the other? Is that it?
One was roads. No, it wasn't a full. There is a surplus that is expected for this year. Est-ce qu'on peut avoir la diapositive qui montre justement les faits saillants?
Oui.
Yeah, there's still a surplus expected of what, 1.6, I think, right?
Correct. 1.7?
Around that, yeah.
And Marie-Jacinthe might even be the best one to go through these numbers with us. So it's that slide. I know that online there we go.
So if you add those, I think that's about 1.6 million right there, right? And you explained it, yeah.
Right.
So that's the reason for the surplus of the year?
Correct.
But now there were over expenditures in several areas on the next slide, I think.
So at the bottom of this same sheet that we saw, dépassement des coûts, so you see there's a portion that goes towards roads. Faudrait revenir en arrière, Mario.
Okay.
And anyway, there's some, but there aren't that many overruns, right?
Okay.
And it's not necessarily that it's overruns that weren't budgeted. It is that we decided to go, rather than to go into a loan situation, we were using the actual surplus to do road work. Right?
Yeah, right. That's on the capital side, right? So is there any of the surplus that is being used against the operating costs to lower the mill rate?
2024?
For 2024, yes.
Correct. Yes, we are using a portion of that. So the logic behind that is that as we were not able to fill the positions that were empty, as we equate that with a drop in services, we are returning that unused money to reduce the percentage.
Now, vis-a-vis those positions that are open, do you know if they're going to be filled for the 24 year?
Them have already, one we passed a resolution at the last meeting, and the other one I believe we're in the very final steps, and that person we expect should be starting very early in 2024. With regards to the 6 remaining positions, we have asked the organization and Director General to look at whether we need to fill all of them or if there is some, consolidation and more efficiency that can be reached so that we can reduce that number. And that has been taken into account as well in the reductions that, or the compressions that we asked.
I don't know at what level those positions are, but at the present moment, are you contracting out the services?
We're contracting out still. So these are, again, resolutions that were passed recently. So for urban planning, we're contracting, and in Treasury, we're also contracting présentement, so now, and hoping to be able to fill those with...
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to see that the increase in the mill rate only went up less than 4%.
Yes.
Which is great.
Thank you.
I do notice, unfortunately, that the budget was not unanimously approved. Is it allowed to have public knowledge of why 2 councillors did not want to approve?
Would you like to? No.
Excuse me. Okay, before answering that, I assume that all the councillors and the mayor have had adequate time to be able to analyze the budget and ask their questions? So is there a reason why you are not approving the budget, gentlemen?
I will defer that until after this meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, in my case?
Yes, please.
I wrote 4-point in my case. Since our election, our operating expense before depreciation have passed from 10.8 million in 21 to 15.4 with this current budget. That represents an increase of 43% in 3 years. With the similar population, similar service offered. So yes, there's a big portion of our expense that we do not control, but there is still 20 or 30% that we do control. At our last meeting, we did ask the town to review their spending, and they did come and cut about 400,000 in a few days. So it appeared that they were able to work on it with a push. Has the town improved its way to do budgets since 3 years that we have been elected? The answer is yes. After a lot of pressure and questioning to try to make them more accountable for their action, but it's not enough to justify the increase in tax that each citizen will now have to pay. The last version of number that I have seen on Sunday, there was still basic mistakes, so this is not close to be a normal budget process.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry?
No, Mr. Smith would like to
May I actually
say something.
Or have I given up my opportunity?
You haven't given up.
No, because I mentioned that I would defer. I come from a different school. I come from a school in another municipality for over 8 years where we did a zero-based budgeting process. And a zero-based budgeting process is a strategic budgeting approach that mandates a fresh evaluation of all expenses during each budgeting cycle. And whether that's monthly or quarterly or biannually, whichever. Unlike traditional budgeting, where previous spending levels are typically adjusted, zero-based budgeting requires individuals or organizations to justify every expense from the ground up per period. And we're not there yet, and I'm frustrated with that. So I'm Mr. Miller, this isn't personal, Marie-Josée saying, council, this is not how I like to see it, and it's been 3 years now, and this is our 3rd budget in Hudson, and I'm not happy where we're at.
But I understand from an earlier comment that there has been progress in the last 3 years, even prior to your own mandates. So am I to assume then that there will be continual progress and towards achieving unanimity, first of all, and satisfaction? Well, let's face it. I mean, I'm very strong for transparency, accountability. You know me. So it sounds like you're going towards that, but it's not fast enough. Is that not?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. Well, I hope that the unanimity comes next year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. You've asked your questions. This is not Jim Duff, please. You've already asked your question.
Forgot to ask a question. That's all. It's the state of the accumulated surplus, the surplus non affecté. To date, the total, I think it was 8.3 million, 8.4 million in the statements from at the middle of this year. What are we now, and where are we going to be next year, according to your calculations?
Répondre à la question.
At the beginning of the year, it was 8.1 million. We do pavement for that, okay, for 1.4 million, I think. And for this year, we will, at the year end with the auditor and everything, I think that first glance at it will be about 1.5 million. For this year, yeah. And the council will make, I will say, priority to that, how to spend it in investment. We see by the PTI, we have expenses for, I will say, for a forecast of use of the surplus. Just over here, not further. Just over here, we said unallocated surplus. We're speaking about 1.6 million and 1.3 million over here, 24 and 25. Ce sera environ de 2,9, quasiment 3 millions.
L'exercice?
8 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that accurately answer your question? At the end of 2024, it will be around 8 million. So we're staying steady, but we're using some of that for the PTI.
Sorry, just because it's...
Louise, last question.
Just because it's such a large increase in the budget, 20.3%, this is for professional fees. What are considered to be professional services? Are these like people that we're hiring, or is this for studies? What would that be for? It's $440,000.
Monsieur Miller, est-ce que vous avez les détails?
Je n'ai pas les détails avec moi là. Pour l'urban planning, il y avait des affaires là-dedans.
Different studies, urban planning project also are included in this this amount.
So these are professionals that we're hiring out to do things.
Yeah, but not to work with our teams to fill some positions. Okay. It's really external people for a specific project.
And this is all for urban planning?
No, it's a lot of...
So it's studies also, just regular
Sorry?
studies? Regular studies would be part of that also?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are there any questions online? There are none. There's a question in the room.
Oui, bonjour. Monsieur Miller, si vous pouvez vous mettre en mode projection quand vous montrez à l'écran les images comme parce que le fond de la salle, c'est très petit. Je suis nouveau à Hudson.
Bonjour, Monsieur Dion.
On se voit depuis un an, mais c'est ma première présence à la séance du budget. Je suis vraiment surpris de tout le processus où on nous déballe un paquet de chiffres ce soir qu'on n'a pas vu, qu'on n'a pas eu l'occasion de consulter avant, à moins que je manque quelque chose. Mais il me semble qu'on ne peut pas. On a pris des photos, moi et la dame ici, pour avoir une idée des chiffres. Hein?
On sera en ligne, mais il faut comprendre que c'est un projet. Donc, c'est le dépôt. En fait, il faut faire l'adoption du projet. Puis ensuite, ça sera partagé en ligne et nous adoptons la version finale en janvier. Je regarde pour être bien certain, là.
Le budget, c'est adopté.
C'est adopté.
C'est adopté ce soir, par contre.
C'est le PTI?
Le règlement pour la taxation et la tarification, c'est un avis de motion ce soir avec une adoption.
Et donc, le résultat de ce qu'on vient de présenter se retrouve dans les règlements. Donc, tous les mill rates, là, les taux, se retrouvent dans ça. Donc, en fait, c'est un dépôt. Puis, habituellement, ces éléments-là sont déposés après la séance.
Mais quand même, le processus, si j'ai bien compris, le processus budgétaire, les citoyens sont informés des résultats aujourd'hui et vous l'avez adopté le budget.
Exact.
Donc, il n'y a pas de moment où le citoyen ordinaire peut faire des commentaires.
Présent, on n'a pas eu de processus de budget participatif. Je sais qu'il y a des villes qui le font. Ils vont mettre de côté un certain montant, puis ils vont inviter les citoyens à participer dans des projets bien spécifiques qui peuvent être justement déterminés par les citoyens, déterminer lesquels seront prioritaires. Mais dans notre cas, on n'est pas encore rendu là.
Oui, parce que j'ai vu, entre autres, c'est des bonnes choses, là, mais on a vu la dette accumulée qui a beaucoup réduit. C'est du bon travail. Le surplus accumulé, moi, je trouverais ça intéressant qu'il puisse y avoir un input des citoyens sur quelle quantité de surplus on garde, quelle quantité de surplus on alloue pour réduire la dette. Il me semble qu'il y aurait de la place pour avoir du travail collaboratif à ce niveau-là.
Absolument. C'est un peu le travail que M. Farrell nous encourage également à faire. Merci beaucoup. Questions online? There are none. So this would be, it is 2 meetings, so we're going to adjourn this one and then open the following one. So this is section 7, adjournment of the meeting. I will need a mover to my left. Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mate, that the meeting be adjourned at 8:11 p.m. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. So welcome to the second special meeting of the Town of Hudson's Council, held as well at the Community Center, and also welcome online to people who are online. There are, as I mentioned earlier, 9 people online. It is Monday, December 11th of 2023. And we will proceed with, or to remind you as well, that this session is being filmed. So anybody who comes up for the question period, just note that you're recorded. So we are opening the meeting, obviously, at 8:12 p.m. Section 2, adoption of the agenda. So this resolution is that the agenda of the special council meeting of December 11th of 2023 be and is hereby adopted as presented. En français.
Point 2, adoption de l'ordre du jour. La présente résolution vise à adopter l'ordre du jour de la séance extraordinaire du Conseil du 11 décembre 2023, qu'elle soit adoptée et il est par les présentes telle que présentée.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Reed Thompson, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 3, delegation to treasurer, power to make reimbursements during refinancing. C'est une résolution pour vous, ça, Monsieur Miller. Whereas loan bylaws 612, 615, and 616 are being refinanced in January of 2024, and such have excess balances available on said borrowing bylaws, whereas the amount to be refinanced is $4,596,000, whereas the town may proceed with a reimbursement at the January 2024 refinancing of the excess balances of $585,000 on the said borrowing of bylaw 615, whereas the town, following the acceptance of reimbursement of the excess balances of $585,000, must proceed with a refinancing of $4,011,000. This resolution is that the Council of the Town of Hudson delegates to the Treasurer the power to reimburse the excess balances of the loan bylaws in the amount of $585,000, and that the Council of Town of Hudson delegate the Treasurer the power to grant the refinancing contract in the amount of $4,011,000. En français.
Point 3, délégation trésorier, pouvoir de procéder au remboursement lors de refinancement. Considérant que les règlements d'emprunt 612, 615 et 616 viennent en refinancement en janvier 2024 et que ceux-ci ont des soldes excédentaires disponibles sur lesdits règlements d'emprunt, considérant que le montant à refinancer est de 4 596 000, considérant que la Ville peut procéder à un remboursement lors du refinancement de janvier 2024 des soldes excédentaires de 585 500 000 sur le dit règlement d'emprunt 615, considérant que la Ville, suite à l'acceptation de remboursement des soldes excédentaires de 585 000, doit procéder à un refinancement de 4 111 000. Alors, la présente résolution vise à ce que le Conseil de la Ville d'Hudson délègue au trésorier le pouvoir de procéder au remboursement des soldes excédentaires des règlements d'emprunt pour un montant de 585 000 et que le Conseil de la Ville d'Hudson délègue au trésorier le pouvoir d'accorder le contrat de refinancement au montant de 4 111 000.
Merci. Do I have a mover? To my left, Reed Thompson, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I saw Mario try to raise his hand there, but no. It is carried unanimously. Section 4, Appointment of Town Planning Advisory Committee, so TPAC. Whereas a Town Planning Advisory Committee has been established in accordance of the Act respecting land use, planning, and development. Whereas the duration of the mandate is fixed at 2 years and is renewable, whereas a citizen member's seat is vacant, the Urban Planning Department issued a call for application for these vacancies of the town's website. This resolution is to name Julien Gagné as citizen member for a term of 2 years beginning on January 1st of 2024.
Point 4, nomination membre du comité consultatif d'urbanisme, le CCU. En considérant qu'un comité consultatif d'urbanisme a été constitué en vertu de la loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme, considérant que le mandat des membres du CCU est fixé à 2 ans et est renouvelable, considérant qu'un siège de membre citoyen est vacant, le service de l'urbanisme a publié un appel de candidature sur le site Internet de la Ville pour combler ce poste. La présente résolution vise à nommer Julien Gagné à titre de membre citoyen pour un terme de 2 ans qui débute le 1er janvier 2024.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Peter Mate, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this? It is carried by majority. Merci. Moving on to Section 5, Bylaw number 743.3-2023, amending Bylaw 743-2021 regarding parking, RMH 330-2021 adoption. So again, anytime there are any changes that are recommended by the Circulation Committee and where we pass a resolution for those changes, we then have to modify this bylaw, so you'll see it come up quite regularly. So whereas the notice of motion of this bylaw was given at the regular sitting of the Municipal Council held on December 4th of 2023, there have been no changes to the proposed bylaw tabled on December 4th of 2023. The purpose of this bylaw is to update the parking bylaw. So this resolution is to adopt bylaw 743.3-2023, amending bylaw 743-2021 regarding parking RMH 330-2021. En français.
Point 5, adoption règlement numéro 743.3-2023 visant à modifier le règlement 743-2021 relatif au stationnement, le RMH 330-2021. Alors, considérant qu'un avis de motion du présent règlement a été donné à la séance ordinaire du Conseil municipal tenue le 4 décembre 2023, que le présent règlement ne comporte aucune modification au projet déposé le 4 décembre 2023, le règlement a pour objet de mettre à jour le règlement de stationnement. La présente résolution vise à adopter le règlement 743.3-2023 visant à modifier le règlement 743-2021 relatif au stationnement RMH 330-2021.
Merci. Do I have a proposer? Peter Mate, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 6, notice of motion and tabling of draft bylaw number 764-2023, decreeing the taxation for the 2024 fiscal year. A councillor gives notice of motion that he would move or cause to be moved by, at a subsequent session of council, the adoption of bylaw number 764-2023, decreeing the taxation for the 2024 fiscal year, and tables a copy of the draft bylaw. So do I have a Reed Thompson as the councillor? En français.
Point 6, avis de motion et dépôt du projet, règlement numéro 764-2023, décrétant l'imposition des taxes pour l'exercice financier 2024. Alors, le conseiller Reed Thompson donne avis de motion de l'intention de soumettre pour adoption à une séance ultérieure du Conseil le règlement numéro 764-2023, décrétant l'imposition des taxes pour l'exercice financier 2024 et dépose le projet. L'objet de ce règlement est d'établir l'imposition des taxes pour l'exercice financier 2024.
Merci beaucoup. So as this is a notice of motion, there's no voting. So the next item, number 7, notice of motion and tabling of the draft bylaw 765-2023 on tariffs. I also will need a councillor to give notice of motion. I can look to my right this time, Peter. So Peter Mate gives notice of motion that he would move or cause to be moved at a subsequent session of the council the adoption of bylaw 765-2023 on tariffs, and tables a copy of the draft. The object of this bylaw is to establish the tariffs and user fees to be charged during the 2024 fiscal year.
Point 7, avis de motion et dépôt du projet, règlement 765-2023 sur la tarification. Le conseiller Peter Mate donne avis de motion de l'intention de soumettre pour adoption à une séance ultérieure du Conseil le règlement 765-2023 sur la tarification et dépose le projet. L'objet de ce règlement est d'établir les tarifs et les frais d'utilisation à percevoir pour l'exercice financier 2024.
Merci beaucoup. So again, notice of motion, no voting. We're on to item number 8, question period, and I remind you that the question period must deal exclusively with the items on the agenda, and I will be alternating between people online and in the room. So are there any questions? There are none online. Let's come ahead.
Yes, concerning item, the delegation to treasurer, item number 3. The bylaws in question, 612, 615, 615, 616, those are just, they're paving bylaws that we're rolling over?
I don't remember what they were. 12 is Maine at Macaulay Hill, the stabilization. 14 is the acquisition of 98 Cameron. And what was the other one that you named?
616.
16 is the fire station. It is for the preparation and infrastructure. So no, they're not all paving. They're old bylaws that essentially are being refinanced.
Okay. Is there any point in paying them back with some of that, is paying them down with some of that surplus, or has it been?
So this is what has been done, right? That's the 585, and we, every 5 years, we have the opportunity, as you know, to pay down, and anything that is below a certain number, we usually have been paying down. We've already done that once this year. Any opportunity, we do it.
Okay, and so how many others have we cleared? Because I know we have a raft of them, if you look at that special.
5 087 000. C'est des soldes disponibles de règlement d'emprunt. Autrement dit, c'était déjà dans nos surplus réservés par les vérificateurs. Puis là, il est arrivé l'opportunité, après 5 ans, de pouvoir payer. Il arrive une fenêtre, quand on a du refinancement, avec le MAMACH, on peut prendre ces soldes d'argent-là et les rembourser pour réduire notre dette.
Merci.
Combien il y avait de règlements qu'on a réussi à fermer?
Non, ça, j'ai pas l'information. J'ai une grosse liste, là.
But it's quite a decent number, right? So we recognize that as the interest rates are increasing, that it is best for, and we have the surplus as well, so to pay them down. And that is exactly what is coming out of the discussions as well with the CMQ. I believe, you know, they've met the Director General a couple of times already. We're still expecting that preliminary report. We haven't seen it, but it is still expected to be available to the public in February of 2024. But that was one of the recommendations. We were already going in that direction, so it just came and confirmed that our best practices in that sense were sound. All right. Are there any questions online? There are none. Are there other questions in the room? There are none. So, item number 9, adjournment of the meeting. I will need a mover. Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mate, that the meeting be adjourned at 8:24. Are there any objections en français?
Que la séance soit levée. Alors, c'est levé de l'Assemblée, de la séance. Alors, que la séance soit levée à 20h25.
Merci. Are there any oppositions to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Much appreciated, and Happy New Year.